Hey YouTube, Jesus Freak with you once again. Are you one of these Christians that knows that Jesus died for you and that's good enough for you? I know a lot of Christians that are like that. They'll say, well, I have an understanding with God. God knows my heart and that's good enough for me. Well, I've always kind of questioned that mentality. I'm going to explain why via this little demonstration. Here you see my motorcycle. It's up on a jack stand. I'm in the process of adding oil right now. I was going to film this whole process, but I decided that might take a little too long and might be a little too boring. So I'll just give you the highs and lows of it. I had to change the oil on this machine, and to change the oil, you only have to change the oil filter every other oil change. Why? That's because it has an internal oil filter, and they're more effective. But to get to that internal oil filter requires a lot of work. You have to actually remove the floorboards, or at least let them hang down with the brake assembly. You have to remove this exhaust pipe. And to remove this exhaust pipe, you have to remove the muffler setup. This muffler system is actually connected. It's one big unit. So you have to loosen bolts, loosen clamps, take bolts out and such, wiggle this whole unit off, lay it to the side. Then you can remove the exhaust pipe, only after you've removed the floorboards. And then you can remove 6 bolts from this plate, slide it out, pull out the oil filter, put a new one in, and then start the reassembly process. Now, if I went to a dealership, motorcycle dealership, they would charge me, I believe it's 45 minutes labor. Maybe a half an hour. I believe a half an hour's labor is almost 40 bucks. So somewhere between 40 and 60 bucks it would cost me to have this done. Labor. That doesn't include the oil. And then Yamaha would charge me, I think it's like $7 or $8 a quart for Yamaha oil. And that's just absolutely ridiculous. So what I did was I decided to do the work myself. It took me about 45 minutes. And actually, I did some stuff that the dealer wouldn't have done. I cleaned behind the mufflers and the exhaust pipe. I went ahead and polished those because they don't get cleaned on a regular basis. Too hard to get to. I also checked some other bolts, some other nuts, make sure things were tight. So all in all, I did a better job than what the dealership would have done. I'm also putting the same type of oil in, but it's going to cost me a lot less, maybe $2.50 a quart. So I'm just saving money, but it takes time, it takes effort. You know, if I just neglected this motorcycle, if I said, oh well, it's a motorcycle, it'll be fine, it'll run, and I just change the oil, you know, once every 20, 40,000 miles, you know, and I let it sit out in the sun, and I didn't clean it, I didn't polish it, I didn't protect the paint, I didn't keep it from the elements, I didn't make sure nuts and bolts stayed tight and cables were lubed and all this. Within a short amount of time, it would still be a motorcycle, but it would look like a rat bike. A rat bike is one of those bikes that people drive for years and years, and they're not really a pretty bike. They may have mismatched parts, but they're still effective. They're a motorcycle. They look really rough. It would be a rat bike. Or I can take the time and preserve this machine, make this machine nice. But, you know, it's kind of like with our Christian walk. You can still be a Christian. You might be a rat Christian. You might be tattered and battered and, for all intents and purposes, a Christian. And I'm not saying that's the worst thing. I mean, if you're still in the body of Christ, that's wonderful. Or you can take the time and do the proper maintenance. You can commune with like-minded believers. You could dive into the Word. You can witness. You can evangelize. You could seek questions. You could keep your prayer life strong. You can do all the things that you need to do to maintain your relationship with Christ. Now, Christ isn't going to walk away from you if you don't change the oil. You know, the proverbial oil change of your Christian life. He's not going to walk away from you if you don't read the Bible. You know, this motorcycle, if I neglect it long enough, it will ultimately quit and end up in the junkyard. So I'm not implying that that's what's going to happen to you if you don't grow with God. But I urge you to continue growing with God. If you want a good, strong relationship with God, you must maintain that relationship. So I just want to leave this little message with you, and I just wanted to wish you all well and tell you that I pray God blesses you more than you'll ever know. I'm certain He already has.